Hey everybody, Asian Fahzaly Gamer here. I just want to take a second, put out a small disclaimer to let you all know that I am not a mental health professional. I just want to do my best to be able to help others with my own experience, and at the very least, hope to be able to point people in the right direction if they do need help. And of course, I also want to remind people that we do go into very heavy and potentially triggering subjects. So that is something to be considered. But I do appreciate your support for you being here. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Fahzaly Advice. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fahzaly Advice. I want to take a second to say thank you. I really do appreciate your support, your submissions, and as well as all of you, because this podcast wouldn't be possible if it weren't for y'all supporting me. So thank you. Now, let's get on into our first submission today, shall we? And this one is brought to us by Crushing on Another. And they write, Dear Fahza, I want to take a second to say thank you to you for starting this podcast. I have watched every episode and it has really helped me with some of my life issues. Which brings us to the reason I myself have submitted today. My partner and I have been together for almost 2 years now. And in about 7 weeks, we will have our 2-year anniversary. Well, congratulations. Things between us haven't been bad, but they haven't been amazing either. If I'm being honest, I feel like we are just going through the motions together. And I will admit, part of this is because of a friend my partner introduced to me during a work party. We exchanged numbers and have been talking non-stop since then. And I find myself waking up every morning anticipating his text and going to bed texting him. While me and my partner are still together, things seem to have cooled off, like a whole lot. Just don't see us together for much longer. But I am also afraid that this is just because I am going through something I don't understand yet, and I might be making a decision I regret. Just don't know what to do here, Fahza. Could you help me out? Sincerely, Crushing on Another. Alrighty then. Well, Crushing on Another. Now, I have some strong feelings about this submission. And I don't mean this in any way against you, but I may have been the wrong person to send this to, because the truth of the matter is, I am somebody who has never understood the proclivities of others who want to cheat, rather than be honest. Why stay where you are not wanting to be with someone you don't want to be with when you could simply speak up? And I know it doesn't seem as simple as that in many different instances, but ultimately that decision has to be made when it comes down to relationships, whether or not you feel like you want to be in them or not. But much like many things in life, it's a quote that I say quite often, but it's like Ron Swanson says, don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. If you're gonna be in a relationship, be in a relationship. Through the ups, the downs, the mundane, the big moments and the small. If you're not ready to do that, then treat it thusly. Treat it as a casual relationship with the understanding on both parts, because communication is important. It doesn't matter how casual the relationship is. Communication needs to be there so that there's an understanding on both parts, where you guys are, where you want to be, and where you're headed. If this isn't a relationship that you see in the long run, then your decision has been made there. This conundrum isn't as complicated as so many people make it out to be. And yes, there are contexts, there is nuance to be considered within every situation. But ultimately, it comes down to you. Do you want to be honest with yourself, or do you want to be dishonest? And in that dishonesty, it spreads to others, not just yourself. For when you are dishonest with yourself, you are dishonest with others. You cannot be true when you hide away. So, what will you want to do is the question that you have to answer. Is this really something that you just might be going through? But then again, if it was just that, why is it that you are towing the line of something that some people call conceptually emotional cheating, where you are using another, unbeknownst to your partner, to fulfill your emotional needs, while still just simply being a present body in a relationship that has no meaning to you? And I say this in assumption, but it seems like it has less meaning to you than you think, because you were willing to step over, or at the very least toe a line of dishonesty, disrespect, and distrust. I'm not saying this to insult you, nor am I trying to come at you. These are thought processes that I think people really need to consider when it comes to a relationship that they just don't. And I don't see the reason why not. Because it's important. It's important to know what you want in a relationship. It's important to know where you want to go in a relationship. And it's important to know if you see a future or not. And if that is not the case, then you both need to know that. Because a relationship has two people in it. It's not a one-way down a bike path. No, it's a two-way street. And that two-way street requires communication and cooperation. And that doesn't mean that you have to be together. No. Communication and cooperation has many different faces and many different ways that it can present itself. And it's not singularly defined by being together. Communicating how you feel so that the other person has the respect of knowing where you are at, so that they can make an informed decision of where they want to be, is nothing negative. It shouldn't be something that you cower away from. If you want to be genuine as a person, if you don't want to be, pardon my French, a complete and total shitbag, then just be honest. Just be genuine. Is that going to be easy? No. The thing is, anything in life worth doing, worth being, isn't going to be easy. If you're just looking for the easy way out, well, guess what? Easy come, easy go. And it's not going to be a good route for you. It'll be a route of chasing something that you will never get, because you were never willing to get through it to get to it. Think about that when and before you make any decision, seeing as you've already stepped forward in one way. Knowing what you know with the actions that you have taken, the decision is yours and yours alone here. My number one piece of advice, though, is to communicate to your partner how you feel. Because it is unfair to them that they are more than likely under the assumption that everything is just fine, while you are testing the waters because you don't know how you feel. And if you care about them, if you care about your partner, you should do them the kindness of, at the very least, allowing them to know that. Allowing them to know that you feel that this relationship may not be what both of you thought it was when you first came into it. It is unfair to string someone along under the assumption that you want a safety net. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not. I'm just saying that I see that happen more often than not. That people are afraid to make a decision, and that the choice to eventually cheat, and I'm not saying that you are, but this is an experience that I've seen from many different people. But the choice to cheat and be dishonest often comes with the thought process of having a safety net. That if this fling, this throw of passion is nothing more than just that, you will have the safety net of someone to go back to. And I use you not in the term of you, specifically the submitter. I use you as in the open term to anybody who may resonate with what I'm saying. But this is coming from somebody who doesn't understand cheating. Truly, I don't. It's never made sense to me to make any other decision than to be honest with the person that I'm with. If I don't feel like we are in a relationship worthwhile, why not say it? What happens from that instance? People get hurt. There are uncomfortable emotions. But ultimately, nobody dies. And life goes on. And in all honesty, the more genuine and honest you are, it goes on for the better. Because there's no misconception of what if, what will. No, there is simply what is, and what will continue, and what will change. Because the only thing that we can count on is we don't know what's going to happen next. But once again, ultimately here, in your conundrum, to me, as easy as it might seem, it might not be easy to you. Because everybody has different viewpoints and everybody has different situations that they have to consider. So, within that, the biggest thing I have to say is consider what you want. What do you want? Do you want to be with this person? Do you want to be with your current relationship? Either way, there needs to be a conversation. There needs to be communication. Because I can tell at the very least, you care. You care enough to have this question and have a conversation about it. And though this is anonymous, this is probably one of the better places to do it in that sense, even though I am not a mental health professional in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply doing my best to give people advice from the experiences that I have had. But you have to answer that question. You have to answer what it is that you want. And be true to that. Be true to yourself and walk that path. Sure, there are things that are going to be unpleasant. Sure, it's not pleasant to go through a breakthrough. It's not pleasant to talk to somebody about the potentiality of being unfaithful. But those conversations could ultimately lead to something better. Either you finding a path to happiness or your relationship being stronger for it. Either way, there is nothing negative that comes from communication. Sure, there might be consequences, but consequences are not necessarily negative, because what they lead to is growth and learning. But there's nothing that we do in life that doesn't have consequences. Nothing in life that is devoid of consequence. Every action we take, every choice we make has consequences. But the strength and power that we hold over our reality is that we can make that choice. Be it informed or uninformed, but it is our choice to make. So, you have a choice, submitter, crushing on another. And that choice is, what are you going to do next? Do you want to be with who you are now, or do you want to explore something new? answer that question. And no matter what the answer may be, communicate. Communicate with who you are with now. Either let them know that you don't see a future, or let them know that you are struggling and that you want to see a future, and that there needs to be a conversation, and that there needs to be healing from what has happened here. But it is your choice. And I do apologize that I might not have the answer that you're looking for, but I do hope that I pointed you in the right direction and that this gives you a little bit of clarity. And I do appreciate that you do watch Fahzaly Advice and you have found value in what I have said. And I hope that you have found value in this. Now, before we move on to our second submitter, let's take a moment to have a word from our sponsor, me.
Well, hey everybody! Did you know that Agent Fahzaly Gamer has a Patreon?
That's right, and Random Skull is here to help tell you about it!
And that's right, we're doing this announcement together!
And when you subscribe to Patreon, you get to see content early, and of course, make requests for content on YouTube, and even on Twitch and TikTok. It's all up to you!
And of course, if you want to support Agent Fahzaly Gamer, check out these links. And of course, there are also links in the link tree.
And remember, when you subscribe to Patreon, you can also leave a message saying that Random Skull is better than Mr. Announcer.
Now, was that even really necessary? Well, hey there everybody, Mr. Announcer and
Random Skull?
And we're here to let you know that Agent Fahzaly Gamer also streams live on Twitch 5 days a week, and sometimes on YouTube.
And if you want to continue to support Agent Fahzaly Gamer, check out the links for his Twitch and his YouTube, all in the link tree.
That's right, check out those links.
Hello everybody, and welcome back. I do hope you found value in what I said in our first segment, and I appreciate all of you. Now, let's get on into our second submission today. And this one is brought to us by Friend or Racist. And they write, "Hey Fahza, how are you doing? I hope you are well, and that your streams are going well. So, recently me and an old friend of mine have been arguing a lot lately. We got into it a few days ago after he got drunk and said some pretty racist things. To be frank, I am an Asian American and I face racism daily. And ever since we dealt with COVID and that stupid orange idiot called it Kung Flu on national television no less, dude was a fucking embarrassment, but I digress. Ever since then, I have noticed not just me, but my fellow Asian friends having to face racism more readily and in public than ever before. And it's honestly pretty ridiculous how comfortable people are with saying that kind of shit. The day after my friend got drunk, I brought it up to him and that his comments made me uncomfortable and that it was uncalled for. He told me I was being ridiculous and that it was just a joke. I am pretty unamused by his jokes, which I won't repeat. We have been friends for almost 5 years now, but his comments and his disregard of how I felt about it has me second guessing our friendship. I am still pretty heated, so I don't know what to do. I don't want to make a rash decision. I could use some help here, Fahza. What do you have to say about this? Sincerely, Friend or Racist? Well, my friend, firstly, I want to say thank you for your submission and for your willingness to talk about this particular issue, because in all honesty, it is more prevalent now than ever before, ever since the events of COVID and quarantine, especially here within the United States. And though I'm not going to get political or in that particular air about it, it is ridiculous how comfortable people are these days with being openly racist, using comfortable racism to hide behind, thinking that it's okay because it's not that bad, when just a few years ago, more than half a decade ago, there was the same stipulation amongst those of color. And in all honesty, that changed. And now it just seems like those that are racist are looking for the next target. And they chose Asians. And you are right. It's not just you. I've seen it more readily and more prevalently ever since then. Hell, there was a good period during quarantine where I had to be afraid to go to my car after work because on the daily I had death threats posted on my car. And things like that are things that I face daily, still, ever since then. And some people might think, oh, you're just being dramatic. The thing is, that's easy to say when you're in a position where you don't have to face it daily. And it's easy to disregard it. Now, when it comes to your particular situation, I honestly don't think that you're being ridiculous in the least bit. And your friend disregarding how you feel when you brought it up in conversation speaks volumes to who he is as a person. Because if he cared, if he was your friend, if he had any level of respect for you, he would be willing to at the very least listen and not simply disregard it just because he felt uncomfortable because somebody called him out for being racist, for being a generalizing person that is contributing to a very volatile mindset, which, in all honesty, I thought there was a point where I honestly thought that there was going to be a change in the way people thought, and that there would be more understanding, more compassion, and more realization that we are all people. And that it doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter the physical traits that may, on the surface, seem like they separate us. But in truth of the matter is, there is nothing that really does separate us as a species. We are all human. And at the end of the day, we are all afraid to die, and we will all die alone. And it is something that we will all have to face at one point or another. And it is sad. It is sad how much people are willing to blind themselves to a truth that is so readily in front of them, simply under the guise of a primitive notion, just racism. Because that's where racism comes from. It comes from a primitive mindset of different is bad. A simple and very, very Neanderthalic mindset. So, my recommendation, because you are heated and your friend may have been blindsided, I am not making excuses for their behavior. I'm not. Because when it comes down to it, someone who doesn't have any racist connotation to them won't say anything racist. And they'll have the mindset to consider. And when the consideration comes to mind, if they have to question it, logic dictates that they don't say it at all. Why? Because what's the point of saying something that you have to question whether or not it has validity or whether or not it will be harmful? The question in itself speaks volumes for that action already. It's the same kind of mindset that I tell people as content creators. When it comes down to making content, if you have to question the content that you are making, don't make it. Trust your instincts and do something else. Just because it might seem like it could get you viral doesn't mean that it'll get you viral in the right way. But I digress. That is not the point of this particular conversation. This conversation is about you and your friendship and where you're going to go forward with this. The number one thing to do in this instance, because when it comes down to it, one, I don't know what the comments were made because you didn't want to share them. And I respect your wishes not to share them because more than likely, as you stated, these comments made you uncomfortable. Why would you repeat them? Now, in that regard, when you bring it up to your friend, take time, take a breath, and try to bring it up in a calm manner. Let him know that, once again, I just want you to know that this comment made me feel very uncomfortable. And I really would like to discuss it. And if he's not willing to, and if he just wants to disregard how you feel, my friend, I believe you have your answer right there as to what you need to do next. Because they're not your friend. They, at the very least, see you as an object, as a token friend, if they're willing to generalize you and see you as nothing more than what is on the surface. It is quite odd, because when I was a child, I was always told, never judge a book by its cover. Never sit there and think that you know somebody by what you see. If you want to know them, speak to them, get to know them, have a conversation. But don't sit there thinking that you have the right to generalize them simply because you don't have the courage to get to know them. And I'm not talking about you, the submitter, I'm talking about your friend. And those out there that are willing to generalize others simply for the sake of something as asinine as a joke. Because, think about, in truth, the reality of it is, we all fight for individuality, to be seen for our individuality, to have our own identity. And yet there are those willing, with those same wants, to take it away from others with their own words, at the very least attempt to do so. They can never do that. Why? Because their words do nothing more than betray their primitive and inane nature and their ignorance. So consider this as you move forward, as you make your decision. But remember, every situation is unique, and we cannot judge one situation by another. Context and nuance must always be considered, and on that, you must always be willing to have the conversation, to communicate. Y'all have been friends for 5 years. There's a reason for that, isn't there? Be it a shame that this would be something that ended through a misunderstanding because one party was blinded by their own misconceptions, when all they needed was a push to be able to see. They just needed to open their eyes and be more compassionate. Which isn't difficult. It really isn't. Kindness takes nothing from people, although some people may think it does. But that is a message for another day. Now, my friend, when you make your decision in pride of who you are and stand up always, as you've done here, for who you are, to be seen as an individual, not by the generalizations that some people want to use as a joke because they're looking for their next target of generalized racism to be comfortable within society. We will not be that target, and we will continue to speak out about it, just like everyone else. All right? Be proud of who you are, all of you. And recognize that you are an individual. And recognize that in others just as much as you would want to recognize that in yourself. All right? Now, I do hope you found value in what I said, and I thank all of you for being part of Fahzaly Advice. And of course, I will end this with, it's time for the love train to get rolling on through. Choo choo. I love every single freaking one of you. Well, everybody, that's the end of Fahzaly Advice. I hope you did enjoy this episode and you found some value in what I said. And of course, if you are interested in participating, if you need some advice or some perspective, feel free to email the address at the end of this part. And remember, all submissions are 100% anonymous. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Need some perspective? Need some advice? Want your submission read on podcast? Well, email Fahza at fahzalyadvice@gmail.com. And remember, all submissions are 100% anonymous unless requested upon.